Hello, listeners. Today is April 15th, 2025. We're here for another episode of The Path to Calm. Stop overthinking, become present, find peace. This week's podcast will explore ways to embrace the present moment and navigate through life's challenges with a calm mind. Nick Trenton's Rewire Your Anxious Brain is like a personal guide to taming that overthinking mind of yours. It's all about understanding why you worry so much and giving you the tools to break free from those negative thought patterns. With techniques inspired by therapy, this book offers a simple yet powerful ABCDE method to conquer anxiety. You'll learn how to manage your expectations, change those limiting beliefs, and even turn your worries into a superpower. Nick's journey from a farm boy to psychologist is an inspiring one, and his book reflects that unique perspective. It's like having a friendly chat with someone who truly understands the struggle and wants to help you live in the moment. Today's episode pulls from Chapter 4, where we dive into the world of long-term anxiety patterns and how they evolve over time. Get ready to explore the anxiety timeline and understand those persistent worries.
Recall that the fight or flight response is one that necessarily narrows perception. When you're anxious or fearful, your attention will zoom right in on the one thing you are perceiving as a threat and probably amplify it in the process. What this means is that being anxious is the opposite of being able to see the bigger picture, and that can be a problem. Using timelines is a way to gain that broader perspective again and reacquaint yourself with the bigger picture that anxiety can sometimes cause you to lose sight of. Here's a question that may seem strange to you. How do you know that what you're experiencing is actually anxiety? The truth is that what many of us interpret as anxiety is actually a complicated cocktail of so-called meta-emotions that completely overwhelm us and make it difficult to identify with any clarity. When you're trapped in an anxiety spiral, all you know is that it feels bad and you want it to stop, but you lose any sense of what is happening and why, and you may also lose all sense of proportion. Timelining can be an antidote for this. It'll help you break down the big, confusing mess that anxiety can be into smaller, more manageable pieces. It will help you put those pieces into a logical order and link them up with a narrative that helps you contextualize what's actually happening. Now, timeline exercises usually cannot be done right when you're experiencing a peak of anxiety or worry. No matter how strong your willpower, things are simply moving too fast for you to make sense of them. Ever feel like your head is rushing a million miles an hour? That's not a time to embark on a timeline exercise. Instead, do this exercise as a kind of anxiety post-mortem when you're feeling a little calmer. Looking from the outside, you're able to see the event with more neutral eyes and move through the memory almost as though you have a pause, rewind, and fast-forward button and you're watching it as a film. Pause. Stop for a moment and remember a particular episode, really focusing on what happened and what you felt and thought. Knowing your anxiety symptoms and triggers can help you identify future anxiety episodes. These sensations then stop serving as triggers, but instead become little alerts that bring you to awareness and give you the opportunity to run a different program. Rewind. This helps you see what may have contributed to your anxiety in the situation. Were you going down rabbit holes online, drinking too much coffee, dwelling again on that embarrassing memory from 5 years ago? Fast forward. Zoom ahead to the outcome of the situation and look at your responses to your anxiety. Did you get anxious because you were anxious? Did you berate yourself, apologize, feel shame? Look at this consequence clearly and see it now without judgment. Do the timeline exercise with a pen and paper, or else using a word processor. Take your time. Reconstruct the event as best you can, almost like you're a forensic detective piecing together a crime. Put things in chronological order and look for connects and cause and effect relationships. Look for cues and triggers. Look for rewards and reinforcers. Look for automatic thoughts and feelings. Be curious about how the difficult episode came to a close. What helped? What didn't? What you're trying to do is figure out how you have interpreted the event and the meanings you have ascribed to certain points in a timeline. What begins as a stressful, confusing muddle can start to look like a clearer picture. You can construct timelines to dissect particularly intense moments like a panic attack, or you could take a long view and use a timeline to explore a whole year or more. In the context of therapy, timeline exercises can help bring to light pivotal but often overlooked personal experience. Sometimes you need to see everything all together on one page to have that light bulb moment. As usual, this works best if you replace judgment and assumption with compassion and genuine curiosity. Don't let your soundtrack or inner critic jump in too quickly to tell you the same old story. Instead, look at it as though for the first time. Look for patterns. Look for something beneath the surface. Let's see how we can apply the above to an example. Lydia is making a big presentation at work, and as D-Day approaches, she starts to notice she's feeling pretty anxious. On the day, she feels unsure of herself, bungles some of the delivery, and receives a few critical remarks from her boss. Now she's home after work, trying to process what happened. She sits down to explore. Pause. Let's look at the details. At the time, she was sweating and felt her heart pounding. She had a weird, tight feeling in her stomach, and there was a lot of tension in her neck and shoulders. She took some deep breaths and soldiered on with the presentation, but still felt anxious. Rewind. Lydia thinks carefully about what may have triggered her anxiety and realizes that she only got anxious after learning that there would be someone from another branch sitting in on the presentation. She writes down all the thoughts she had at that moment. An outsider will instantly see how stupid my ideas are. She also writes down all the emotions she recalls feeling: exposed, vulnerable, foolish, small, unconfident. She also noticed that there was a secondary reaction, i.e., she felt stupid about feeling stupid. There were other triggers too. She recalls staying up late the night before and skipping breakfast that morning, instead opting for more coffee than she usually had to pep her up. She's beginning to see some cause and effect. Fast forward. After receiving some feedback from her boss, she recalls going into a mini meltdown and immediately getting defensive. On the drive home, she noticed herself ruminating over his words, seemingly making them worse and worse each time, until she felt sick with anxiety. After calming down, though, she can see that she actually missed all the good points, the positive feedback, and the fact that she completed her presentation despite feeling anxious. Once all this has been written, Lydia takes a piece of paper and literally draws a timeline from left to right. She plots all the events, starting from the previous night, and ends a few hours after the presentation. She draws a line to show where her anxiety rose and fell. Simply doing this calms her down and gives her a sense of perspective. But the real work comes when she starts to ask questions. How might she respond to these triggers differently in the future, knowing what she knows now? What helped reduce anxiety in the moment, and what made it worse? What was the main trigger? Can she see any factors that were staining and maintaining the anxiety? What did she think and feel? And can she put a more positive spin on it now that she's calmer? If she could go back to certain points in the timeline now, what would she tell herself? Lydia might then decide to close her eyes and visualize the entire scenario again, but this time change it. She might picture different choices she might make and different ways she might respond to triggers. She might rehearse an alternative ending to the story and add in a breathing exercise or affirmation to help soothe her nerves. When the exercise is completely finished, Lydia realizes something. Her boss had a point. Once she can dial down her anxiety, she can see his feedback more clearly and realize that he was actually helping her and that his notes could be extremely useful going forward. But this is not something she could have processed if she'd left her anxious experiences in a knot and decided not to unravel them further. To follow the process Lydia did, try the following. 1. First, just describe the event in as neutral terms as possible. Note your feelings, your thoughts, your bodily sensations, and your actions. Describe what was happening around you. 2. Look to what happened immediately before and be curious about triggers and contributing factors. Remember that a trigger can be purely internal, such as a memory. 3. What happened after the main anxiety event? Note what you did, your emotions, and how effective your coping strategies were. What meaning did you ascribe to certain events or sensations? 4. Continue to explore the event, perhaps even replaying it while rehearsing a different ending. What have you learned? If the above seems long-winded, rest assured that this kind of unraveling doesn't need to take a long time, but it does need a moment of conscious reflection, a little honesty, and a lot of compassion. Don't assume that your first interpretation of any stressful event is the most accurate one. You may find that this technique almost always makes events seem a lot less catastrophic than they seemed at first. Long-term anxiety patterns. The timeline tool is not just useful for dissecting bad days at the office. It can help you gain an even broader sense of bigger, overarching patterns. For example, why you tend to gravitate toward jobs that aren't right for you, why you usually quit after 3 or 4 years, and why the same story seems to be playing out every time this pattern repeats. Try the following exercise when you have 20 minutes to spare. Take an A4 piece of paper, landscape orientation, and a pen, and draw a long line from left to right to represent your entire life so far. The very leftmost part is your birth, and the right is present day. Divide the line up evenly so that every year or decade is shown in its correct proportion to the rest of the line. This line represents chronological time. Next, you're going to draw 2 more lines, one that represents your overall state of mind, and the other tracks your most significant life events. For the first line, try to think back over each year of your life, and, using the y-axis, the vertical left edge of the paper, mark how you felt on, say, a 10-point scale. You could show your mood as neutral, 0, perfect and blissful, 10 points above neutral, or the worst you've ever felt, 10 points below. While you're drawing this up and down line, you can simultaneously draw in the other line that shows the main events happening at the time. The main event can be a big thing like the birth of a child, the loss of a job, emigrating, winning the lottery, or getting married. But you get to decide what is significant. If there's a single poignant memory that you feel was pivotal in your life, include it, even though it may seem small to others. Let's say Lydia does this exercise in addition to the shorter timeline exercise above. She marks on her graph all the big events, every new job, every relationship start to end, all the big house moves, health disasters, and life-changing holidays. You can see where this is going. When Lydia looks at everything on one page, she may start to see patterns that were kind of hidden before. She might notice that Almost like clockwork, her anxiety tends to skyrocket in the few months after starting a new job. She may notice that her worst years were always those in which she moved houses, and that she tended to be happier when she was in a relationship than when she was single. Some insights might be truly surprising. For example, she thought that changing jobs or being fired was the worst thing that could happen. But when she actually looks at a timeline, these periods in her life were, in fact, marked by a feeling of relief. The most stressful moments are, she realizes, the times when she begins a new job. Doing this exercise for the longer term has many benefits. It gives you the bigger picture and lets you challenge certain assumptions that may not be correct. Remember that anxiety is just a story we're telling ourselves, and it may be accurate or it may not be. This is true for the bigger overarching stories we let anxiety tell us. For example, we may have a story that goes, "Because I'm not as smart as other people, I find things more difficult, and that's why I never really progressed in my career." But then you construct your timeline, and you see a different story. You have progressed in your career. Maybe it's time to throw the old story out. Naturally, this exercise is limited by the accuracy of your own memory. Of course, you could just project your own distortions and biases onto it, but it works best if you can be as honest as possible. If you have someone you trust, ask them to look over your graph. You may be surprised at what they agree and disagree with. As you complete it, ask the following questions to get a richer sense of the way anxiety has played a role in your life. Overall, what has preceded your most anxious periods in life? Overall, what allowed you to overcome those periods? What made things better? Is there any main theme that seems to recur across your timeline? What big idea is connecting all the separate events? How do you look at past events now, and how does this compare to what you felt about them as they happened? If you struggle with anxiety, can you pinpoint the moment when it started? What else was happening? Is there an overarching story that you've been telling about your anxiety which links all these events together?
Hey there, podcast listeners. We hope you found this episode insightful and that it provides some helpful tools for managing anxiety. In today's chat, we dived into the world of anxiety management and explored some unique techniques to help us stay calm and present. You see, our fight or flight response can sometimes make us feel like we're missing out on the bigger picture. But by stepping back and looking at events from a neutral perspective, almost like an observer, we can gain clarity and understand how all these memories fit together. It's like rewinding and fast-forwarding through a movie to get the full story. Additionally, taking time to question our interpretations of events and seeking healthier alternatives can lead us down a path of long-term anxiety relief. This process allows us to identify patterns and make positive changes for a brighter future. So, don't forget to grab a copy of Rewire Your Anxious Brain by Nick Trenton if you want to delve deeper into these topics and take control of your mental health journey. Remember, the power to calm our anxious minds lies within us. Let's keep moving forward with curiosity and self-care. Until next time, stay curious, stay present, and always believe in yourself. We'll catch you later.